I often contemplate whether my father perceived me as his daughter or merely as an investment. A contingency plan he could utilize during challenging circumstances. Had I been aware of the outcome, would I have still offered my assistance? Possibly. Perhaps not. However, I am certain of one aspect. I will not permit others to exploit me in that manner again. During my upbringing, my father, Henry Callaway, was a formidable presence, an entrepreneur, the owner of Callaway & Sons Manufacturing, a company that has been part of our family for 3 generations. It represented his pride and joy. In addition to his spouse, beyond his offspring, exceeds my capacity. I discovered early that familial love was not unconditional. My father held a singular belief. Findings. One must earn their position, otherwise, it remains unattainable. My elder brother, Damien, was the favored child, prepared from an early age to assume leadership of the company. I served as the contingency option. One must be self-sufficient, as business is not a domain for emotions. At the age of 10, I recall sitting at the dinner table while my father discussed Damien's potential as the next great leader. I expressed my desire to be included. What is my position in this context? Father? He chuckled while absent-mindedly ruffling my hair. You will manage well independently. Women are not required to hold leadership positions in corporations. They enter into marriage with them. I feigned laughter with the others, masking the impact of the words. By the time I reached an age where I could demonstrate his error, I had lost interest in Callaway & Sons. I established my own trajectory, attended college on a scholarship, and developed a career in financial consulting. While my father scarcely recognized my achievements, Damien experienced a more severe lack of acknowledgement. He endeavored to meet expectations, however. He was imprudent with finances and exhibited poor leadership skills. Callaway & Sons had experienced financial losses for an extended period. However, my father declined to acknowledge it until it was too late. The call occurred on a frigid December morning. Daisy, we need to discuss something, my father stated, his tone tense. Direct communication is preferred. I am well, thank you. How about you? Proceed directly to the matter at hand. Please visit the house this evening. Upon my arrival, my father was already positioned at the dining table, with a folder containing numerous documents laid out before him. My mother sat quietly beside him, her face marked by deep lines of concern. Damien was present as well, swirling a glass of whiskey, his knee exhibiting nervous movement. My father interlaced his fingers. Observing me, the company is facing difficulties. I did not make any statements. I had harbored suspicions for several years. He requested assistance. Your expertise in finance equips you to address issues of this nature effectively. I reviewed the documents, examining the data, debt, decreasing revenue, and misallocation of funds. The situation exceeded my expectations negatively. What is the required amount? I inquired, my tone steady. He made direct eye contact with me. 2.000.000. I almost found it amusing. 2.000.000? I do not possess that amount of money. His jaw became tense. However, you possess connections, investors, and methods for debt restructuring. That was the case. He sought more than mere assistance. He requested that I leverage my connections, jeopardize my reputation, and invest my personal finances for a company that was never under my ownership. For a father who had not provided genuine support, I ought to have declined and departed. Nonetheless, a residual aspect of my being sought to demonstrate my value. To demonstrate that I was not merely self-sufficient, I was essential. I consented. In the subsequent 6 months, I dedicated myself to rectifying the issues at Callaway & Sons. I engaged financial experts, negotiated with creditors, and persuaded investors to provide an additional opportunity. I invested my time, expertise, and resources into the effort of salvaging a company in which I had no financial interest. Gradually, it proved effective. The company achieved stabilization, and by year-end, it was no longer at risk of collapse. 2 weeks prior to Christmas, I received an email from my father's attorney. A modified testament. I gazed at the text, feeling a sense of dread. My father amended his will to bequeath all his assets to Damien. No mention of my presence. I reviewed it once more. I acknowledge my misunderstanding. Despite all my efforts, he ultimately selected Damien. He continued to perceive me merely as an outsider. I addressed him that same evening. I entered his study abruptly, scattering the papers across his desk. Provide an explanation for this matter. He seldom raised his gaze. It is as it ought to be. I tightened my fists. I have preserved the viability of your company. Father, I committed my name to the endeavor. Are you suggesting that this is inconsequential? He exhaled deeply while massaging his temples. Daisy, you will be all right. You consistently are. However, Damien requires this. He represents the future trajectory of this company. I exhaled sharply and nodded to myself. Understood. I responded. Henceforth, Damien will be responsible for determining the course of action. Consequently, I exited the premises. I halted the financial support, terminated connections, and for the first time, I ceased seeking his approval. 1 week later, my phone rang. I responded, anticipating a form of reconciliation. I was met with a sharp, impatient voice. Where is my money? No. Greetings. Negative response. Thank you. Absence of remorse. I smiled with bitterness, clutching the phone firmly. No. Greetings. I am well. Thank you for your inquiry. Absence of sound. He subsequently expressed disdain. Avoid exaggeration. Daisy. One has a responsibility to this family. I experienced an internal rupture. Is there an obligation? Having been regarded as expendable throughout my life? I inhaled deeply. Negative, father. I stated calmly that I do not. I subsequently ended the call. I gazed at my phone. My heart racing. He intended to return the call. He intended to transmit a message. He was poised to recognize his actions and extend an apology. Imminent occurrence anticipated. The display remained unlit. The silence extended, enveloping the surrounding space akin to a dense fog. For the first time, my father required something from me that I was unwilling to provide. Rather than offering an apology or attempting to rectify the situation he had caused, he exhibited a sense of entitlement. I functioned as an instrument rather than as a daughter. Upon my refusal to be exploited, he exhibited intense anger. A prolonged, acrid laugh emerged from my lips. I ought not to have been surprised. Nevertheless, a certain naive aspect of my being had harbored hope, anticipated that this occasion would yield a different outcome. During that night, I experienced insomnia. Periodically, I would check my phone, anticipating another call. However, my father exhibited a strong resistance to change. If I did not yield promptly, he would remain patient, allow me to reflect on my own guilt prior to determining his subsequent action. I was not inclined to succumb to it. The following morning, I entered my office, and my assistant promptly perceived that something was amiss. Is everything satisfactory, Daisy? She inquired with hesitation. I compelled a smile. I am currently addressing some familial matters. She acknowledged my statement, yet her eyes revealed underlying concern. I have consistently been the individual with the solutions, the reliable problem solver. For the first time, I was not engaged in any repairs. I allowed it to burn. By the conclusion of the week, the emails commenced. Initially, they exhibited civility. From Henry Calloway. Let us approach this matter with reason. Daisy, I acknowledge your distress. Family remains an intrinsic unit. We do not abandon one another. Please contact me. The item has been deleted. Subsequently, 2 days later, another occurrence transpired. From Henry Calloway. This matter transcends your individual significance. Your perspective is limited. Your professional background is in finance. It is well understood that Calloway & Sons represents a long-term investment opportunity. Your assistance was instrumental in its preservation. What is the rationale for discarding that item? Damien is experiencing difficulties managing independently. Please address this issue promptly to prevent further complications. Damien is experiencing difficulties. Indeed, he was. I anticipated it years prior. Nevertheless, my father continued to perceive me as the issue. I provided a response this time. Daisy Calloway. Subject. Re. This matter extends beyond your individual concerns. Cleaning up Damien's messes is not within my responsibilities. It was never the case. I submitted the message prior to engaging in further contemplation. 1 week later, my father arrived at my office. During a meeting, my assistant knocked on the conference room door with hesitation. "Miss Calloway, your father has arrived." All individuals present in the room directed their attention toward me. I maintained a neutral expression. "Inform him that I am currently occupied. He states that it is urgent." Indeed, he did. All matters became urgent concerning his needs. I exhaled audibly and rose to my feet. "Please allow me 5 minutes." Upon exiting into the waiting area, I observed him pacing near the windows. He appeared altered, not as organized as typically observed. The suit remained pressed, however. The tie was loosened, and his typically styled hair appeared somewhat disheveled. He turned upon hearing the sound of my heels clicking against the marble floor. "Daisy," he began, managing a smile. "It is a pleasure to see you." I folded my arms. "Is it so?" He exhaled through his nose, evidently attempting to sustain his composure. "I did not come here to engage in conflict." "No." I inclined my head. "You enter my office without prior notice after I have disregarded all your emails. Yet you claim not to seek confrontation?" He tightened his jaw. "I wish to engage in conversation." I exhaled audibly. "Acceptable. Engage in conversation." He exhibited hesitation. The conversation deviated from his anticipated script. Ultimately, he reached the main argument. The company remains in a precarious situation. The investors are becoming increasingly restless. Damien is a subject of interest in various contexts. Overwhelmed, I raised an eyebrow. "What is the implication of this?" He regarded me as if I were communicating in an unfamiliar language. "Your return is essential. I feel as though I remain connected to this. I was effectively excluded from the will. Marginalized once my utility had diminished." I emitted a soft chuckle. "Negative." His expression became resolute. "Negative. Indeed." His lips were pressed into a thin line. "Daisy, this matter extends beyond your individual concerns. The collapse of the company would result in repercussions beyond our immediate group. Employees and families rely on Calloway and Sons for their livelihoods. Will you truly exhibit such selfishness?" It was present. The manipulation of emotions to induce feelings of guilt. The identical strategy he employed throughout my life. I repeatedly succumbed to the same manipulation. However, this instance was unsuccessful. I met his gaze with a steady voice. "I have saved it previously. That constitutes my contribution. I have no obligations to you." His expression became somber. "The company was established for Damien. You were aware of that. It was always within your knowledge." Nevertheless, he had approached me when Damien had not succeeded. I shook my head, a sardonic smile forming on my lips. Subsequently, allowed Damien to manage the situation. I pivoted on my heel. Departing, I turned my head to look back at Daisy. "This discussion has concluded. Father." For the first time in my life, I was sincere. I anticipated a prompt subsequent action. My father consistently rejected negative responses. I had presented it to him in the most assertive manner possible. However, days elapsed. Subsequently, a week. Subsequently, 2. Absence of sound. Initially, I believed he had finally comprehended. Perhaps, for once, he had accepted my statement as truth. I ought to have been more discerning. The subsequent action did not originate from him. The source was my mother. I departed from work at a late hour. Fatigue weighed heavily on my temples when my phone rang. "Mother." I experienced a moment of hesitation prior to responding. In contrast to my father, she infrequently initiated calls. She consistently occupied the role of a silent observer, maintaining neutrality, the woman who allowed events to unfold instead of actively shaping them. I accepted the call by swiping. "Daisy," she articulated, her tone gentle, nearly uncertain. I exhaled audibly. "Hello, Mother. Are you currently occupied?" I had just exited the office. A pause occurred, as if she were summoning courage. "May we engage in a discussion?" I rested against my vehicle, holding the door handle firmly. I anticipated the direction of this situation. "Proceed." She exhaled unsteadily, and for the first time in years, I considered that she might genuinely be anxious. She stated that it concerns your father. Additionally, Damien, indeed, it was. They are experiencing difficulties. This situation extends beyond your interactions with your father. The company is in a precarious situation. Your brother is in a state of drowning. I pressed my fingers against the bridge of my nose. Mother, please. Daisy. Her voice faltered, and I became immobilized. My mother consistently exhibited composure. She refrained from yelling. She refrained from crying. If my father represented the storm, she embodied the calm water below. Nonetheless, the gravity in her voice was perceptible. The state of desperation. For a fleeting moment, guilt coiled within my abdomen. She proceeded before I had the opportunity to respond. Your father is experiencing health issues. He is not consuming food. His sleep is minimal. I am. She exhibited hesitation. I have concerns regarding his well-being. I shut my eyes. Timeless. My father did not call again due to a realization he had encountered. I was unaffected by him. However, my mother? He recognized that I continued to perceive positive qualities in her. He understood that I could be swayed by her, even when I remained unyielding towards him. Therefore, she was present, assuming the role of the concerned spouse, the intermediary, the individual capable of rectifying the situation if I were to acquiesce. However, on this occasion, I discerned the underlying truth. I suppressed the guilt and stabilized my voice. Mother, I care for you, however. I cannot proceed with this action. She took a sharp inhalation. Daisy. Negative, I stated, more assertive at this point. This represents the established pattern. Correct? He incinerates all, leaving you to manage the remnants. You pled. You mitigate the situation, allowing him to evade consequences. Repeatedly. Absence of sound. I continued forward. I declined to participate further. I once salvaged that company. I rescued him on one occasion. He reciprocated by excluding me as if I had never been significant. He has made his decision. Her voice was a mere whisper. The situation is more complex than it appears. Daisy. It is indeed. I stated. It is. Indeed. I entered my vehicle, grasping the steering wheel. Do you wish to save him? Mother? Subsequently, allowed Damien to undertake the task. That is the individual he selected. He placed all his bets on that individual. She exhaled slowly, indicating her comprehension. However, comprehension did not equate to acceptance. I am concerned about the potential loss of my daughter due to this situation. She stated ultimately. A mass developed in my throat. You will not. I made a commitment. However, I will not compromise my identity in this situation. I terminated the call prior to her making any further statements. The following morning, I awoke to a headline. Callaway & Sons third-generation enterprise faces jeopardy due to emerging family conflict. I paused, reviewing the text again. What is occurring? I sat upright, reviewing the article. Internal family conflict has been reported by anonymous sources as a threat to the company's future. A former family member departed during a crucial period, resulting in turmoil for the company and its employees. Although they did not explicitly name me, it was clear to whom they were referring. I had little time to process the information before my phone was inundated with messages. Received correspondence from a former college acquaintance. Is this article pertaining to you, Daisy? From a previous client. I hope you are well. Please inform me if you require assistance in addressing this matter proactively. Provided by my assistant. Would you like me to begin screening calls? I continued to gaze at my phone when a message from Damien appeared. Damien. Daisy. Assistance was warranted in this situation. Anger surged through my bloodstream. This constituted more than a mere news leak. This constituted a deliberate assault. A public campaign aimed at coercing compliance. My father had exhausted his final option. At that moment, I realized. He was defeated. I no longer experienced fear. I was not the young girl at the dinner table seeking recognition. I did not serve as the fixer. The safety net refers to a system of services and programs designed to provide support and assistance to individuals in need, particularly in times of economic hardship or personal crisis. The daughter remains silent, positioned in the shadows. I had completed my task. I composed a singular response to Damien. I informed Dad that if he intends to subject me to such treatment, he should be ready to face the repercussions. I transmitted the message. I anticipated that the repercussions of my text would be instantaneous. My father was a man who could not tolerate challenges, much less threats. For the first time in my life, I experienced no fear of his anger. I was prepared for it. The following morning, I occupied my office, consuming coffee while reviewing the most recent financial reports for a client. An unsettling tranquility enveloped me. Subsequently, my assistant knocked. She appeared uncertain, as if contemplating whether to articulate her thoughts. Daisy, your mother has arrived. I became rigid. My mother never arrived without prior notice. I placed my coffee down and exhaled gradually. Allow her to enter. A moment later, she entered, appearing as if she had not rested for several days. She exhibited dark circles beneath her eyes and grasped her purse as if it were the sole object maintaining her composure. Mother, I stated calmly, this constitutes an unexpected occurrence. She remained standing. She positioned herself in front of my desk, exhibiting signs of anxiety by wringing her hands. Daisy began to speak but then paused. Her voice fluctuated. Your father is extremely angry. I nearly found it amusing. Under what circumstances is he not angry? She asserted that this time is different. He is consulting with legal professionals. He intends to initiate legal action against you. I closed and opened my eyes briefly. Are you considering legal action against me? I reiterated, astonished. For what purpose? For not providing him with my financial resources? Is that now considered illegal? She ingested. He believes you provided inaccurate information to the investors. You undermined the company by departing. I exhaled nasally while shaking my head. I did not engage in any acts of sabotage. I salvaged that company. Upon my departure, the situation remained stable. The current collapse is attributable to Damien. That responsibility lies with Dad. I understand, she whispered. Her eyes filled with tears. I am aware of that. Dear, what is your purpose for being present? I did not articulate it verbally. I was already aware of the answer. Her absence was not due to her concurrence with my father. Her presence was motivated by fear of him. She implored, I need you to rectify this. If he proceeds with this, it may have detrimental consequences for you. Winning may still result in reputational harm. I terminated the relationship with her. He has previously attempted to undermine me. I stated in a detached manner, indicating my phone, which displayed the article regarding Callaway and Sons. He has already tarnished my reputation. Now that the initial approach has failed, he seeks to engage in legal maneuvers. Negative. I inclined my body forward. I will not allow myself to be subjected to bullying. Mother, not by that individual. No individual is responsible. She then sat down, as if her legs had finally succumbed to fatigue. I am uncertain about what actions to take, she whispered. I exhaled deeply while massaging my temples. My mother consistently exhibited passivity, remaining in my father's shadow, rationalizing his behavior, and maintaining harmony. I sought to differentiate myself from her. I declined to emulate her behavior. You have two options, Mother, I stated softly. You may continue to advocate for him. Continue to interpose yourself between him and reality. Continue to allow him to dominate your interactions. I allowed that to be fully considered before proceeding. You may choose to disengage, as I have done. Tears cascaded down her cheeks. I am uncertain about the process. This delineates the distinction between us. I had deduced it. I had liberated myself. She would never do so. I expressed my affection for my mother in a gentle manner. However, I will not address this issue on his behalf. She directed her gaze towards me at that moment. Gazed intently at me, as though perceiving me anew. She then stood, wiped her tears, and exited without further comment. The anticipated lawsuit did not materialize. The threat was devoid of substance. As I had anticipated, however, my father had not yet concluded. Several days later, I received a notification from my bank. A warning regarding fraudulent activities. An attempt was made to access my accounts. I promptly contacted my bank. My pulse is elevated. Miss Calloway, we have identified several attempts to access your accounts from an unknown device. The representative provided an explanation. All systems have been secured temporarily, however. It is advisable to review your security settings. I was already aware of the individual's identity. My father. I ought to have been extremely angry. However, I felt fatigued. He exerted no influence over me. He was attempting to seize any available object. During the subsequent hour, I modified all passwords, implemented additional security measures, and restricted access to my financial records. I subsequently sent a text to Damien. I informed my father that any further attempts to access my finances will result in legal action. He took 30 minutes to respond. Damien, I was unaware that he would take that action. I expressed disdain. Untruthful. You did so. You permitted him to do so. I did not anticipate a response. And none was received. Damien was not the architect of the plan. He was merely a pawn. As he had consistently been. 1 week later, I received another call from my mother. However, on this occasion, she did not plead. She exhibited signs of panic. Daisy, she inhaled sharply, her voice trembling. Your father is on the line. He fell to the ground. For a brief interval, the environment surrounding me became motionless. I held my phone firmly. What is the inquiry? He was transported to the hospital urgently. His cardiac organ? Her voice faltered. There is uncertainty regarding his survival. I swallowed, feeling a constriction in my throat. I ought to have experienced an emotion. Discomfort, apprehension, remorse. However, I experienced only numbness, as I understood her true inquiry even at this moment. Return home. Please return. Resolve the issue. I exhaled. Please provide me with updates. I stated. Please inform me of the doctor's findings. She exhaled unsteadily. Will you be attending? I shut my eyes. Negative. Mother. Upon concluding the call, I anticipated experiencing an emotional response. Feelings of guilt, melancholy, relief is evident. However, there was an absence of any findings. Only silence. For years, my father has had a significant presence in my life. An undeniable force. Each decision I made, all sacrifices, each late night was dedicated to rectifying his errors. My efforts were solely aimed at validating my worth to an individual who perceived me merely as an instrument. What are the next steps? He was now in a hospital bed, and I found it difficult to feel the concern I believed was expected of me. I did not lack compassion. I was merely empty. 3 days elapsed. 3 days of unanswered calls from my mother. 3 days of messages from unfamiliar numbers. 3 days of Damien remaining silent. On the 4th day, my phone vibrated once more. Mother, he is in a stable condition. However, it is inadequate. The physician indicated that it constituted a warning sign. Significant lifestyle modifications are necessary. This may serve as the necessary wake-up call for him. I observed the screen intently. Is this a wake-up call? She continued to hold that belief. It is surprising that my father, a man who had spent his life manipulating, scheming, and controlling others, would undergo a transformation solely due to the consequences of his actions manifesting in his physical condition. I did not respond. A subsequent message was received later that evening. Mother, he is inquiring about your presence. I exhaled, massaging my temples. Indeed, he was. Not due to any alteration on his part. Not due to feelings of remorse. However, he required something. I provided the sole response available to me. No, I did not anticipate a reply. After an extended pause, the typing indicators became visible. Mother, I comprehend. Only, consider the implications. Daisy, I would not. 1 week later, I observed the news. Calloway and Sons was in a state of decline. This is the definitive instance. The article provided a clear depiction. A declining empire. Investors are withdrawing. Termination of employees. Accumulation of debt. Damien experienced a failure. My father lacked the strength to address the issue. I anticipated a call from Damien. To solicit alms. To make a final attempt to re-engage me. The sole communication I received from him was a brief, resentful message. Damien, you have obtained your desired outcome. I observed it for an extended period before responding. Negative. Damien, I received the outcome that was warranted. For the first time in my life. I was sincere. The following morning after receiving Damien's text, I awoke experiencing an emotion that had been absent for an extended period. Tranquility. No relief. Not a victory. Only tranquility. For the first time, there were no fires to extinguish. No immediate calls required. Avoidance of manipulative appeals is essential. No imminent threats are present. Callaway & Sons was experiencing a decline. However, it did not pertain to my responsibilities. My father was in the process of recovery. Yet my involvement was not necessary. Damien was managing the aftermath, however. I felt no responsibility to assist in the cleanup. At last, my life belonged solely to me. 7 days later, my mother made another call. I considered disregarding it, however. I chose not to do so. Mother, I responded, maintaining a neutral tone. She exhibited hesitation. Your father has returned home. I did not speak. He is distinct. She responded promptly. Less noisy. He has remained largely silent since his return from the hospital. I remained silent. She stated, with an uncertain tone, that he likely wishes to see you. However, he will not inquire. I exhaled slowly. You seek to ascertain my willingness to do so. Absence of sound. She then inquired softly, would you? Am I likely to? Should I return to that house and confront the man who had excluded me from his legacy? Perceiving me merely as a tool to be utilized and then abandoned? Should I provide him with one final opportunity? I shut my eyes. I subsequently made my final decision. Negative. Mother, I will not. A tremulous inhalation was heard from the opposite side. I anticipated your response. I ingested. Will you remain? She delayed her response. She quietly confessed. I do not know how to leave. I applied pressure to my temple with my fingers. That is your decision to make. I informed her, just as I made mine. I observed her take a sharp breath, suggesting she intended to express an additional thought. However, she did not. She softly expressed, I love you, Daisy. For the first time in an extended period, I found her credible. I expressed my affection in return, saying, I love you too, Mom. I subsequently ended the call. This marked the final occasion on which I communicated with her. 1 month later, I was positioned outside my new residence. An area devoid of historical significance. Absence of distressing recollections. There are no remnants of a childhood characterized by a quest for emotional sustenance. It was modest in size. Yet it belonged to me. While consuming coffee on the porch, I received a notification from an unidentified number. I did not respond. I did not require it. Regardless of the individual, be it my mother, father, Damien, or one of their supporters, they were no longer present in my life. I severed the connection and have no intention of returning. After a final review of the phone, I selected the block option. I returned indoors, smiling to myself. I had achieved victory. The outcome did not align with their expectations of victory. Via financial resources, authority, and dominance. However, in the singular manner that was genuinely significant. I possessed my autonomy. There is no outcome. This is not my father's empire. Not aligned with my family's expectations. Not the burden of history. No one can remove that from me again.